Welcome to Dark Whispers. The Appalachian Mountains stretch endlessly across the eastern United States, older than the oceans and carved by forces long forgotten. Hikers say the trails feel alive, as if the woods themselves watch your every step. Rangers warn newcomers not to wander after dusk, not to follow voices, and never to acknowledge what you cannot see. These first four encounters were shared by people who swore they'd never return to those trails again. Encounter 1. The Screaming Hollow. Marcus had hiked alone plenty of times, but Hickory Branch was different. Quieter, heavier, almost breathless. Halfway down the ridge, a piercing scream split the silence. It was unmistakably human, sharp and panicked. He froze, listening. Another scream echoed, closer this time, desperate and raw. He rushed toward the sound, sliding down a steep slope into a shadow-drenched hollow where sunlight barely touched the ground. But the moment he stepped inside, the screaming stopped. The air grew thick, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Then he saw it, a pale shape crouched beside two moss-covered stones. Too thin to be human, too twisted to be an animal. Its head snapped upward, mouth stretched unnaturally wide, though no sound came from it. Instead, the scream erupted from behind him, then from above, then from beneath the ground. Marcus staggered backward as the creature lurched forward, its limbs bending like broken branches. He bolted up the slope, roots tearing at his boots. The screams chased him until he reached the trail, then stopped instantly, leaving the woods silent as death. He never hiked alone again. Encounter 2. Footsteps behind me. Emily loved the Ridgecrest Loop for its peaceful solitude, until the day she felt someone tailing her. At first, she thought it was another hiker. Then she realized the footsteps matched her perfectly. When she stopped, they stopped. When she continued, they followed. She called out, but the woods gave no answer. Even the birds had gone quiet. The deeper she walked, the colder the air became, as though the forest was draining warmth from her skin. Her breath fogged despite the mild afternoon weather. She reached an overlook to gather herself, heart hammering. That's when she heard it, the sound of gravel shifting inches behind her. Emily spun, expecting a person. Nothing, but the air beside her ear moved as if someone had leaned in to breathe. A slow, cold exhale brushed her cheek. She didn't walk back. She ran, stumbling, gasping, refusing to look behind her. The phantom footsteps chased her until she broke through the tree line and sprinted into the parking lot. Only then did the steps fade into nothingness. She swears something followed her home for days afterward. Encounter 3. The Lantern in the Fog. Ethan and Caleb were experienced hikers, but nothing prepared them for the rolling wall of fog that swallowed the Appalachian Trail that afternoon. It engulfed the trees, hiding the path, smothering every sound. Visibility dropped to mere feet. They debated stopping until the fog lifted. Then a lantern glow appeared in the haze. At first, they were relieved. Maybe another hiker who knew the trail well. But as the light approached, something felt wrong. The lantern didn't sway. It glided, steady and unnatural. Through the shifting fog, a tall figure emerged. He wore old-fashioned clothing, a long coat, a slouch hat, but his face was blurred, as if the fog refused to let his features exist. He didn't walk. He drifted. The light passed inches from them, though the man beside it cast no shadow. He turned his head toward them, and the fog recoiled, revealing empty blackness where his face should have been. The brothers ran blindly, crashing through brush and branches until the fog thinned. When they finally found the trail again, they realized they were miles off course, but alive. Rangers later told them other hikers had reported the same drifting lantern for decades, always in fog, always silent. Encounter 4. The cabin that shouldn't be there. Jake had planned a short day hike, nothing unusual. But an hour in, he spotted a small wooden cabin just off the trail. It was old, impossibly old, with warped planks and a roof sagging like tire bones. Oddly, no cabin appeared on any map of the region. Curiosity pulled him closer. The front door hung slightly open, creaking though there was no breeze. As he stepped onto the porch, he heard a low, frantic whispering inside. Dozens of voices, overlapping, urgent hissing. One voice rose above the rest, clear and deliberate. "Come in." Jake froze. The whispering grew louder, rushing toward the door like a wave. He stumbled backward, nearly tripping on the steps. The moment he stepped off the porch, the door slammed shut with force that shook the frame. He sprinted back to the trail, and the whispering followed him, softer, but still calling. When rangers later investigated, they found no cabin, no foundation, not even disturbed soil. Jake insists he could take them straight to where it stood. They refuse to follow him. They say quiet corners of the Appalachian woods remember everything. Footsteps, laughter, sorrow. Sometimes they remember too well, and replay what they remember at the wrong time, to the wrong hiker. These final 4 stories were told by those who vanished from ordinary trail reports and came back changed, hollow-eyed, refusing to hike again. Encounter 5, the thing that followed us down the mountain. Late one October evening, 3 college friends, Danny, Robert, and Luis, descended from Black Balsam Knob under a heavy sky that threatened rain. The descent was steep, with ancient trees flanking the narrow trail. By chance or fate, they started hearing soft rustling beside them. They stopped, and the rustling stopped. They moved again, and rustling resumed. Assuming it was a deer or small animal. They didn't worry until the foliage parted and a tall shape drifted into view beside them. It was dark, unnaturally tall, limbs long and spindly, shoulders slumped but somehow looming. No details, no eyes, no clear clothing, but its outline was unmistakable. Humanoid, wrong. They froze. Robert whispered, "Go ahead. Finish the trail." The shape remained still, but the forest around them pulsed with sound, snapping twigs, shifting underbrush, always just behind. Then it spoke, in a voice that was exactly Danny's, pitched in a mocking lilt. "Don't look back." Danny stilled. Robert gasped. Luis, taller than either, turned his head, only to see empty forest. When he turned back toward the shape, it was closer, its silhouette sharper, as if sliding through shadows. Panic took them. They ran, hearts pounding, every footstep sounding like thunder. As they barreled downhill, the sound of something chasing them, not the crunch of leaves, but the hush of cloth sliding across undergrowth, kept pace. When they burst onto the logging road near their car, the presence vanished. No footprints, no traces, just silence, heavier than before. Even now, Danny can still hear her own voice whispering through rustling leaves. Encounter 6, the whistling woman at Alder Fork. Locals never hike near Alder Fork after nightfall, and most won't say why. But visiting hiker Travis didn't heed the warnings. He set out at twilight for a short solo hike, hoping to catch sunset through the old growth pines. As darkness settled, a slender note of a whistle, soft, melancholic, drifted down the trail. It wove between the trees, rising, falling, slipping sideways. It felt personal, intimate, longing. Travis paused, straining to listen. The whistle came again, closer, now accompanied by a whisper. "Over here, I'm lost." His blood chilled. He clicked on his flashlight. The beam a weak cone in the gloom. Everywhere the woods were thick, silent. He called, "Where are you?" The voice came again, from every direction, identical. Always the same breath, the same tremor, calling, coaxing. He crept forward, heart thudding. For a moment, the beam caught a figure between 2 trees, tall, thin, long hair draped over a pale gown, head bowed. But the moment Travis lifted the light, the figure straightened, turned, and the beam revealed nothing but air. He bolted, stumbling, gasping, heart pounding so fiercely it echoed in his ears. The whistle followed, soft, sad, trailing behind him, like a lament. He fled until he burst onto the empty forest road and sprinted to his car. Only then did the whistling fade, but the memory stayed. Locals say some have disappeared after chasing that call. Others say they stayed, but lost something forever. Encounter 7, the mountain that watches back. Marcy had always loved solo hikes. The quiet, the solitude, the sense of being swallowed by towering pines. On her trip up the ridge in Greenbrier, she felt especially drawn by a narrow path that climbed steeply toward a rocky overlook. Halfway up, The wind died suddenly. The forest around her fell silent. No bird song, no rustling leaves, no distant wildlife. Even her footsteps seemed muffled. She felt eyes on her, not from behind, but from above. When she reached a small clearing, she gasped. Across the valley, on a bare cliff face, loomed a grotesque formation, a distorted human skull carved by erosion. Two deep hollows for eyes, a cavernous maw where the mouth should be. The pale stone stared directly at her. As twilight deepened, shadows pooled in the eye sockets. For a moment, each hollow looked empty, then something moved. A flicker, a shift, as if something behind the stone was breathing. Marcy's heart seized. The air grew thick, metallic. Every instinct screamed to turn and run. But she forced herself to keep her eyes locked on the skull's face. The shadows twisted, elongated, flickering like curtains in a storm, but never letting anything emerge. Then the forest exhaled. The pine needles rustled. The wind returned, but soft, far away, as if it dared not disturb whatever watched her. Marcy backed away without turning around, glancing at the skull until the trees swallowed it again. She didn't stop to look back. She didn't pause until she reached the car park. After that day, she never hiked alone again and never went near stone faces. Encounter 8, the faceless silhouettes on Roan Mountain. This last story comes from a veteran park ranger, Holt, a man who had spent decades patrolling remote trails. He once confessed to never forgetting what he saw near Roan Mountain on a long winter's dusk. He rounded a ridge near sunset and spotted a lone figure standing just beyond the tree line. Tall, still, watching the trail. Holt approached, assuming it was a lost hiker, but as he drew closer, his flashlight beam hit nothing. No clothes, no reflection, no sign of flesh. Only an outline, dark, smooth, featureless. Its face was like a void, absorbing light. "Hey, you okay?" Holt called, propping his pack against a tree. The figure remained motionless. Then Holt heard it, a hum, subtle at first, but growing louder. From behind the tree line came more forms. Dozens, tall, silent, each a perfect silhouette, limbs rigid, faces blank. They stepped into the beam of his flashlight. Holt froze. The shapes didn't breathe. They didn't move. But the air around them vibrated, alive with unspoken intent. Dread pooled in his stomach. He raised his flashlight higher, and the shapes dissolved into the darkness, one by one, like ink in water. The forest exhaled, settling. No footprints. No sounds. A perfect erasure. Holt left the trail that night. He retired 3 months later, said he couldn't see them with a badge, whatever that meant.